Episode number 188 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. Hello to all my beautiful listeners. I just say thank you so much for making this a part of your day and really taking the time out to hear this podcast. I really do feel that every part of it is from the bottom of my heart, and I love hearing from you guys. And when I do get feedback, it just fills my heart. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for choosing this podcast to listen to, and thank you so much for being a part of my life in a way. Obviously, I haven't met all of you, but it is really nice to know that we are connected in some way and that I'm able to give you something that you can take with you on your fertility journey and hopefully inspire you in some way to realize your power and really take back your power on a very difficult journey. As I've heard, a lot of people feel that their power is being taken away. And so today I actually wanted to go over 5 beliefs that I tend to hear from my patients, my clients. I work both online and in person. So all people going through fertility challenges. And there were 5 beliefs that I feel that were important enough to mention because I feel like these 5 beliefs can actually hold people back on their fertility journey. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. So today I am going to be sharing the 5 beliefs that can hold you back on your fertility journey. These are beliefs that I see repeatedly with my patients and my clients in person and online. And they're definitely beliefs that are very understandable. So there's nothing wrong with believing these things. They're actually something that we are either being told or we believe based on our experience or expectation. And number 1 is when people want to see changes right away. They want things to happen right away. And that's more of a feeling. I mean, it's a belief, but it's based on a feeling that they're tired of waiting, which is very valid. Tired of waiting because many times by the time they come to me, they're already waiting for a year or more. And they want to see things implemented right away. So when I work with people, whether it comes to their menstrual cycle, ovulation, egg health, it takes time. And as I always say, especially with women, we're bound by cycles. So it takes a couple of cycles for things to really change. And that impacts menstrual cycles. People come in actually for amenorrhea. I do get a lot of people with that, and it takes a while. Sometimes we need to do herbs and we need to combine it with other treatments. So in every case, there are many different aspects and many different things that need to play in as a factor. So it definitely is not something that happens overnight, and it takes time. And ultimately, we are part of nature. I talk a lot about the cycle because Chinese medicine looks at the body as part of nature, part of the rhythm of nature. And we do need time. If you look at anything that happens in nature, it does not happen overnight. And if it does happen quickly, a lot of times it isn't able to sustain itself. Sometimes when you see that things are made to grow quickly, when there's farming techniques and ways to try to get things to move faster, it doesn't really work. It's not sustainable. So ultimately, the best thing to do, even though it's not comfortable, is to take time and to adjust the expectations that it's going to take time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. And ultimately, that's actually in your best interest to take your time and really take it step by step. And also, when people come, a lot of times they'll realize they have to change a couple of things in their diet. So all of those things also take time because a lot of them are behavioral and they're habitual. So really getting yourself to attune with yourself, and that's ultimately what I do when I have people come in, is it's all about attuning with yourself, with your own rhythms, because your body heals itself. Your body is designed to heal itself, and ultimately we're not the healers. It's your body that's healing itself. But we create an environment for the body to thrive. And that is really important. It's important to adjust things and listen to your body and really respond with what it really needs. It's asking for things. And symptoms are the way that your body is letting you know something's off. I need a change. And ultimately, that's how we put our detective hats, and that takes time, and you don't know how your body's going to react. And the same thing goes for going to see a fertility clinic. When people go through fertility clinic, the same thing happens. Everybody's hoping that that first dosage of treatment is going to nail it, but that doesn't always happen. And I hear it from my patients all the time. Sometimes that dosage that it's all a guess, because if you've never done fertility treatments, it's going to be a guess by the doctor. And not too much of a guess. I mean, they do take your labs and they base it on that, but they don't know how you're going to respond ultimately. And a lot of times people will overstimulate or they don't react well to a dosage. So then the next time they adjust it. So whether it's a medicated IUI or an IVF cycle retrieval, they will adjust it based on how the patient reacts. So it takes time to really see how you're going to react. And the same thing happens with my treatments with acupuncture. I see how people react, and if need be, we tweak it. Not everybody reacts to the same set of points, and not everybody reacts to the same type of treatment. So we tweak it and we see what works and what doesn't work. So it takes time. It definitely takes time, especially if you're working with people, new practitioners, whether you're implementing diet changes with a nutritionist or a functional medicine doctor or an acupuncturist like myself. It takes a while, and this is not something that happens overnight. So it is good to just kind of keep that in mind, that it's not something that happens overnight. And I'm going to go actually into the second one. The second one is your past does not predict your future. So it's an important one to actually move into, because a lot of times when you don't see changes right away, you're going to assume that things are going to be the same as they've always been. But your past does not predict your future. And I can tell you this because doing this podcast for many years, having conversations with people like my patients, my online clients, and my guests with their stories, really amazing stories throughout the podcast. And some people go to the age of 46 to have their first natural pregnancy, and it actually continues into a healthy baby, because obviously that's something to always consider too, because somebody can get pregnant, but are they going to sustain the pregnancy? So this is a sustained pregnancy. Incredible story. And it's something that I've heard for so many people that have gone through years and years, and sometimes close to 10 years of struggling to conceive, and then finally getting pregnant in a way that they didn't even expect, like naturally. So those kind of stories, they exist. The stories that are like, I can't even believe that that's what happened, but it does. So based on seeing that and hearing that, I know for sure the past does not predict your future. And I'm going to mention my own story. My own story was the same thing. From the time I was 13 to the time that I was 25, I had not found any doctor that can give me what I needed in order to create balance in my body and figure out whatever the root cause was that was causing me to have irregular cycles. Not only irregular cycles, but it impacted my sleep, my circadian rhythm, my skin, my hair was falling out. I had so many things going on at the same time, and my emotions too, all over the place. So not having that balance in my own body created years of symptoms, and eventually I found an acupuncturist, and that's what I needed. And what the acupuncturist did was what I basically do now, with my patients and also my online clients, because there's so many different ways to work out and create balance in your life, not necessarily having to do actual acupuncture. You do acupressure too. Once you figure out what your body needs, that is when everything changes. So whatever you've been told you can never accomplish, all of a sudden you see that actually your future can look so different that it's almost unrecognizable. Like your body and how you feel become unrecognizable. And I'm here to say, just as an example, that that is absolutely possible. Not only is it possible, it absolutely something that our bodies were designed to do. And not only me as an example, but my patients and what I see every single day. And sometimes it shocks me when it happens faster than I expect it to, because I know that a lot of times it takes time. But it really is amazing how resilient our bodies are designed to be. And it's just a matter of really tuning in, really listening, and also believing in our bodies. And what is it like? What are the messages that we tell ourselves? And then going into the next one, number 3, the third belief is that you are bound by your diagnosis. So like if somebody says you have PCOS, and that means that you're never going to be able to conceive, or you're going to have a really hard time conceiving. I am certain that I had undiagnosed PCOS, because I look back and I can definitely mark 2 of the 3 requirements to be considered PCOS. I had the hair loss, I had the acne, I had the irregular periods, I had probably high testosterone too. I had some facial hair. I mean, there were so many different things that I can say I probably had PCOS, but was never told that that's what I had, or that was never my diagnosis. All I was given, really, the only solution was to get on the birth control pill. So I could have, if somebody were to tell me this is what you have and there's nothing you can do about it, even my period, they said you're irregular and there's nothing you can do about it. You cannot regulate it other than just taking the birth control pill, and that will regulate you. And again, stories from my patients, same thing. I mean, people get told that they can't conceive naturally. They have to do IVF because their ovarian reserve is too low. Whatever the diagnosis is, that is not who you are, and you are not bound by that diagnosis. It's just one perspective from somebody who was taught from one perspective. So every type of medicine has a different perspective on the body. That's something that I really, really want to mention. That doesn't take away from the importance of getting diagnosed. But that's why I always suggest for people to get multiple opinions, because it is important to get different perspectives. But keep in mind that every doctor, every practitioner has their background, and they're taught from a certain lens, to view the body from a certain lens. Chinese medicine looks at things quite differently, but they also have overlapping similarities between Western medicine and Eastern medicine. We say Western, Eastern, modern, and ancient medicine. There are similarities, and there are actually some parallels that you can draw from, which is exciting. It's interesting when you see science and kind of like things that were talked about for many years, and you will see that, but they have different perspectives. And then what Western medicine says they have no cure for, Eastern medicine can describe it as a certain pattern based on the person's tendencies and really kind of internal climate. And if you get that climate in check, then yes, you can actually work it out and allow the body to regulate itself. I'm a perfect example of that, because the same thing happened with me. And finally, I realized what it was that I needed. Everything started to regulate. So yeah, I could have easily had a diagnosis, and in a sense I did, irregular periods, and basically was told that that's just the way my body was. That was my diagnosis. That's how things were. And that is not the case. And I'm living proof of that. And I see living proofs every day in my office. So it is something that I do want to mention, is that, yeah, your body is designed to heal. Now, that doesn't guarantee that things won't change, or things will change if you have a certain condition. And sometimes certain conditions need more severe or stronger medicine or procedures like endometriosis in some examples do really well with certain surgeries. So in certain circumstances, obviously it's not all a blanket statement, but for a lot of things and a lot of diagnoses, there are ways to change that. Your body can actually overcome so much more than I think that in general we believe. And belief number 4, which is kind of related to the diagnosis one, is that poor ovarian reserve equals infertility. A lot of people go to IVF clinics, and in IVF clinics, this is something that I also want to mention to you, is that they see things in the perspective of numbers, because for them, the more eggs they can get, the better, because it gives them more of a chance for eggs to fertilize, to grow, than fertilize. And the more you have of anything, the more chance you have of things working out, or at least that's the idea. It's not always the case. Sometimes I've seen people have very, very low number of eggs retrieved, but they end up being really great quality and they fertilize beautifully. And then many of them, sometimes it'll be like literally 2 eggs, and those 2 eggs will turn into 2 healthy tested embryos, and that does happen. And then I've seen others where they get tons of eggs and none of them end up as healthy embryos, or they're tested and they don't make it. So sometimes you'll have things that are just, they don't really defy that normal logic or that type of thinking. So, but the bottom line is, when a person comes in, one of the first things they check, if it's an IVF doctor, if they're interested in doing IVF, one of the first things they check is AMH, and they also want to see FSH and all your other numbers to see, but really AMH, to let them know what is the reserve and how is your body or your ovaries responding to FSH. Does your brain need to increase it higher? Is it responding well? Because the higher the FSH, it just means that your ovaries are not responding, so it needs to dial up the amount, really, the output. And those are, there's many others that they check in between that, but those are things that they check to see what the numbers are. Really, the AMH, they like to know that you have a lot of reserve, because you're going to be doing IVF and they're going to be stimulating. They want to know that they're going to get a lot. And keep in mind that sometimes they also want to focus on like what's going to be a success and what's not, because ultimately it does reflect on the office what their success rate is. It's one of those things that, is it great? No, it's not great to look at it that way, but it's also a business, and it's just the reality of how things are, because people are going to come in and they're going to judge them based on that. So you'll hear a lot of doctors, if things don't work out, they'll kind of suggest doing egg donors, but that's not necessarily the solution, or it can be, depending on the person. It really depends on the person, but that doesn't mean that they won't be able to get pregnant with their own eggs. And I've seen stories like that as well. So it doesn't really mean, if you have a low ovarian reserve, that you're not going to get pregnant, because it really only takes one. And in the perspective of Chinese medicine, when I work with people, I focus more on egg quality, because ultimately that's what you want. You want the quality. You don't want the quantity. Is great to have, but it's useless if you don't have quality, because you're going to get eggs that end up not having good quality, that can impact the DNA, the genetics, and it can also impact how the pregnancy, if the pregnancy is sustainable, if it's going to continue. And also the egg health is super important, because the eggs actually can also correct some of the sperm's DNA when they fertilize. So it's super important that the egg has really great healthy mitochondria, which is the energy centers, and that you get all the nutrients and blood flow to the ovaries to give the eggs what they need. And there are different things that you can do really to boost that with diet and supplements alone, plus acupuncture is perfect. It's a really, really powerful way to make a difference. So it really matters more that you have quality over quantity, even though quantity is good because you want to have quantity, but the quality is more important. And it doesn't mean that you're infertile if you have low ovarian reserve. It really just means that you need to boost the quality, and then that will give you more of a chance of having a sustained pregnancy. And last but not least, another belief, and I hear this a lot from my patients coming in, I feel like I need to relax. And I feel myself that that is another added pressure for people to feel that they need to relax. And that's something that a lot of people hear from everybody. And to me, it's exhausting to have to hear that because you can't just relax. Like if I remember even growing up, if somebody tells me like relax, it pisses me off. It's not a very relaxing thing to be told. And this isn't just about being told that. It's also what we tell ourselves. It's also the pressure that a person might be putting on themselves. Like I need to relax and maybe that's going to help me get pregnant. And the truth is that's an added pressure. It's an added pressure to tell yourself that. And what I would suggest instead is arming yourself with coping skills. And that's just good for life lessons anyway. And it's also great to prepare you for motherhood because those are things that you're going to take with you forever. It's something that you can actually really, really use to impact and empower yourself in life. So coping skills, doing things that help you to release some steam, breathing exercises too, exercise, not over exercise, just enough. Because I always say over exercise also can impact your everything, your hormones, and also adversely affect fertility. So you want exercise to be balanced. So a balanced exercise routine really helps you cope with stress. And finding ways to journal, having conversations with people that are supportive, avoiding those that are not supportive, and doing those kind of things, really using it as a strategy to feel better, but not to put pressure on yourself to relax, because it's useless to say that to yourself. It's not going to help. Give yourself tools, and then just naturally you'll start to feel better. So giving yourself tools, and you can really look back to thinking about your life and what's always made you feel better in general. And if you look back to think about what makes you happy, and then bring those things back. And it could be dancing. When I was younger, I used to love to dance, or walking in nature, or having conversations with people that you really connect with, people that you feel safe with. That's super important because sometimes you can feel you want to talk to people that you really love, but they're not going to understand. And sometimes it makes you feel worse because then they give a lot of unsolicited advice, etc. You know those people. So it's really important to protect that energy, protect your energy, and create a strategy over your life, on what it is that empowers you. Like, do things that make you feel good. Do things that help you release the energy. And sometimes it means crying, watching like a really tear-jerking movie or something on TV that really helps you cry, because crying is really healthy. It's really good to get release. Validating yourself. Give yourself validation. Instead of telling yourself to relax, give yourself the validation. Allow yourself to be where you're at and to feel what you're feeling with no judgment. And that is super liberating. And sometimes that's all you need. All you need is just to be heard. And it's either heard by somebody else or heard by yourself, aloud. When you feel allowed to just be who you are, to like feel what you're feeling, it's so liberating. It just feels so good. And that's sometimes all you need to move the energy of the emotion. They say energy and motion. That's what emotions are. You want to let them move the way they want to move and allow them to be in a way that feels good to you. And also expect good days and expect bad days. They both come, and sometimes they alternate, but this too shall pass. And keep that in your mind, because even when you're on your bad days, this too shall pass. And then sometimes you have good days, and you know what? It's just part of life. That too shall pass. Everything passes. And that's why on the good days, you want to really be grateful and enjoy them, because you don't know how long it's going to last. And the bad days, just reminding yourself, this too shall pass, because that is the one thing that's consistent throughout life. Everything changes. Things change all the time. So really allowing yourself to feel your feelings and engage in things that really make you happy. Don't put that on the shelf. Really bring that into your life. It's part of the strategy of putting yourself first. And it's okay to put yourself first. It's not selfish. It's actually selfless to do that, because you will be able to show up for so many other people so much better, because you will feel more whole and your cup will be full. So I hope those things really will make a difference. And sometimes we need those reminders. And those are definitely things that I talk to my patients about. And I think sometimes just getting a different perspective, or at least looking at what it is that you believe and challenging it, is healthy. It's healthy to do that. And it's also very empowering in certain circumstances. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a beautiful day. So that concludes today's episode. You can find all of the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share and leave a review. Reviews mean everything to podcasters, and I really enjoy hearing from my listeners. You can also find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com or email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I love hearing from my listeners. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com. I thank you so much for listening in and hope that you have a beautiful day.